Hi, this is Robert Kidd from the Tribute team. I'm going to basically just show you how to get started with Tribute. This is basically a beginner's guide, and I'll try to be a bit in depth and explain things as I go along. So it's probably very useful if you are using Tribute for the first time, or maybe if you've had a lot of problems getting started or getting things working. This might help you to just find where you're going wrong. So first things first, you are definitely going to need a cake view and cake hook from the PWM Discord. So you do actually have to become a patron of PWM, but you can actually get the lowest tier if you are struggling financially. It's only a few quid, so it's quite cheap, and it's really worth it because you're gonna need updated versions of Cake View and Cake Hook if you want to be modding this game. It's like the essential tools, really. It's the only thing you can't really do without. So it's definitely worth it, and in particular for Tribute, the latest version of Tribute is always working with the latest version of the game itself. So you really need, if you want to keep up with what we're releasing on Tribute, you really need to keep your game updated, and you're going to need PWM because you're going to need the newest version of Cake Hook. In particular, you want Cake Hook version 2.1, because if you don't have that, you're going to have a lot of problems modding on the latest game update, and you'll just have files basically your game won't actually load your JSFB mods. So anything that edits the files, basically what Tribute edits, is not going to show up in your game unless you've got Cake Hook 2.1. So make sure you get sorted out with that stuff first. I'm not going to cover getting those files here. You can ask in the Discord, and you should probably be heading over to PWM's own Discord, and they will answer any questions you've got there for getting started with Cake View, Cake Hook, etc. So that said, so at this point you're going to need to download the newest version of Tribute, which I'm assuming you've already done if you're watching this video, or you're about to do. So you can grab that on the Tribute 2K Twitter, or you could, X account now, or you can get it on the Discord. So when you download it, you'll get an archive like this, Tribute 2.7.zip. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to extract that. Right, you see it's extracted here. So this is my Tribute 2 folder. So this folder can actually be anywhere on your computer. You do not need to put it in your game directory for it to work at all. I find it easier just to keep it separate. You can put it in your game directory, it doesn't really matter, but I just recommend putting it in a separate folder. Maybe create a mods folder somewhere where you've got all your downloaded mod files and different things you're using and tools and stuff. But it can be anywhere basically. So when you open this up, so the first thing you'll see is your Tribute 2 exe. So that's the main Tribute app basically. So the most important thing that Tribute needs to find is this Bake Me folder at the top. So this always needs to be next in the same folder as the Tribute 2 exe. So you can't move that away, and you can't rename it. It has to stay with the Tribute 2 app basically. So what this is, Bake Me, is all that your modded .jsfb files that Tribute is going to edit to actually put your mods into the game. So when you're creating a character, for example, the main files that Tribute is going to be editing are these first 4 files here in the roster folder. So whenever you create a new character, you will see that these get updated, and you'll see by the date modified that they've just been updated. Also in your characters folder, you've also got character mapping. So that's really important as well. So Tribute will be editing that. Cutscene is more to do if you're adding custom 4-man and 2-man entrances. GM mode, that's if you're adding a MyGM slot for your mods. Your hide file, that's just something we include so you can unlock everything in the game basically. Your UI is where your renders are. Obviously, you probably know some of this stuff already. And then you've got the new belt folders for the new add belt slot features. So basically, Tribute is going to look into this folder. It's going to look for Bake Me, and it's going to look for these files to edit them. So they have to stay with the exe. So if you're going to come back later and add more slots later, you want Tribute to be continuing to work with the same files. So if you're moving these around and stuff, you might lose track, and you might not be able to find the mods that you created earlier. So it's just really important that these stay together. So when you've actually created your mods and Tribute has made edits to your Bake Me folder, this is the folder that you're actually going to be baking. So with CakeView. So it's in the name really, Bake Me. So that's the clue that this is the folder you're going to bake. And you don't need to move it anywhere, because when CakeView bakes this folder, it's automatically going to place it into your game mods folder. You can see over here, I've got my main game directory on the right, and I look in mods, and in here, don't worry, you won't have a backup folder. That's just something I made just for myself. So ignore that. But yeah, so when I actually bake my files, it'll create a new .cat file or whatever it's called in here. So you don't need to move any of these at all. Okay. So let's start by creating a character. So when you first run Tribute, you'll see the main menu. So the first thing I'll do, we're going to create a new character. So option 1, and so it's going to ask you what wrestler ID you want. So there is a list of wrestler IDs you can choose from for adding your new slots. These IDs are not in the game or part of the game files normally. They're actually new slots that were added that Tribute adds to the game. And in total you've got 150 new slots to add. But what you can do, if you don't want to actually look up what the next slot is, you can just enter 0, and so that's going to use the auto assign, so that will give you the next slot that's available. So I recommend using this, and at the end of this process it will tell you what the actual ID is that's been assigned, so you will know how to name your mod files. So do 0. So this is your name for the character. So to get the hash ID for the string name you want to use, you have to actually use SDB editor. So you can get that for free from PWM as well. So I've already done this. You've got an example here for Murphy. So I've already looked into the SDB editor and got that code. Yep, so for now I'm just going to use the example for Murphy. 147452268, and you can actually change this later using the edit slot function, so don't worry if you want to change this later on, you can still do that. So enter data, and this is just the social media tag you get from the SDB as well. So I'll do 1 for female, and we've got 5'4". Weight, I'll just put 200. This is just a test one, so I'll just put anything really. 200. So the weight class, light heavy, and I'm going to do a striker. So ring announcer ID, in the help files you can actually find a list of all the ring announcers and commentary IDs you can use. So this is useful if you are replacing audio with sound editor, so you want to add a custom ring announcer audio into the game. But for now I'm not going to use this, so I'm just going to put 0. Later on we can use edit slot to change this if you do end up going into sound editor and replacing the sound files. What you need to do is find like a wrestler you don't mind replacing their audio, like one of the jobbers, I don't know, Carly Prime or something like that, and you can search in sound editor RA1 file for Carly Prime, and then you can replace all her ring announcer audios. And then if you do that, then you would find her ring announcer ID, which you can get in the help folder, and enter it here basically. But for now I'm not going to have any announcers, so we'll just have a silent one, which is 0. Same for commentary, that's usually just going to be 0 unless you somehow know how to add new commentary into the game, or if you are creating an alternate version of like CM Punk for example, then you'd want to put CM Punk's IDs for ring announcer and commentary. Hometown ID, so you can actually find these as well in the help folder. There's a list of hometown IDs. For now I'll just put 0, but you can look that up and sort that out quite easily. Right, so now it's saying character creation success, and our new wrestler ID is 104. Okay, I'll just return to main menu. Right, so now you will notice if we go into our Bake Me folder, into our roster folder, you can see that the date modified has all been updated on these 4 files. So that is the time now, 1:18 in the UK. So those have all been updated, so that's good. And if we go into characters, you'll see 1:18, that's also been updated. So that's been a success. Right, so now we've got the JSFB files all done. So now, excuse me, we basically want to set up our character folders and files for the mod and also our renders, and that's pretty much it. So let's go into Bake Me and characters. So you remember our new character had the ID of 104, so their character folder is going to be named like this. So it's always going to be called placeholder underscore, and then the ID you're using, which is 104, and then A0. So A0 stands for attire 0, and that's your default attire. So later on, if you decide to add an attire slot to this slot, then that would be called A1, and then A2, A3, if you kept adding more attires to that slot. So, and inside your attire folder is always going to be named the wrestler ID underscore alt attire. So even if it's the default attire, it's still called alt attire in Tribute. It's just how I set it up. It's kind of arbitrary. Okay, right, so I'm going to show you one I made earlier. So, as they say. Alright, so here's one I've made here. Here's a full character folder. So placeholder 104 A0, your attire folder named. So inside you need to rename all these loose files in the attire folder to the ID 104, and base model is just the same. So if you are porting these mods, obviously there's extra steps to do. I'm not really going to cover that in this video because that's a separate thing really, but pretty much that's how you're going to do it. You just install it like that. And then in your UI folder you're going to have your renders. So for the new slots, they're always going to be named placeholder underscore, then your wrestler ID 104 underscore attire 0. And then if you've got a alternate attire, then it'd be the same but attire 1 at the end. And that's pretty much it. So once I've added my mods in there, I'm just going to open up Cake View and find it. Yeah. And navigate to my Bake Me folder. Then I'm literally just going to bake the folder called Bake Me. And I can call it whatever I want, but just call it Bake Me, it's going to be easier for you. Do not auto-generate, and make sure your output folder is mods. When you bake, you want to be overwriting the last one you did, so make sure the target name is the same as last time. You do not want to keep creating alternate versions of the Bake Me file. That is not going to work. So just hit bake. So that's quite quick because I've not actually put many mod files into it. So that's done. So what you'll see now, over in your game directory mods folder, you'll see that Cake View has automatically put your CAC file in there, and that's literally it. You just can run the game and that will work. So that's it, guys. Okay, I'm going to show you how to add a new attire to a vanilla wrestler. So for this example, I'm going to use Alexa Bliss. So I'll just grab her from the files I've already created. So I'll grab this character folder here. So I'm going to put her attire in the characters folder. And we'll come back to this in a minute, and I'll explain how this is named in a minute. Let me just grab a render for her as well. One sec. That's the render. Okay, so I want to add an attire to Alexa Bliss. So what do? So I'm going to load up Tribute. Now, I want to be modifying the same versions of the Bake Me files as I did last time, because I want my new character to still be there, and I want my attire as well. So if I've not moved the Bake Me folder or those files, then the changes I've made will still be there. If I have moved them away, I'm going to need to move them back again, back into this Bake Me folder next to the Tribute exe. So I'm going to be building on what I've already created. I don't want to be starting over on a different file. So that's why I recommend not moving them away from the exe in the first place. It's just going to be easier to keep track of. Right, so yeah, so I'm going to add this attire. So I'm going to go to option 2 to the attire slots menu. And I'm going to go option 1 to add an attire slot to a vanilla superstar. So enter wrestler ID of a vanilla superstar in decimal, for example 312. So Alexa Bliss is IDs. Okay, so her wrestler ID 620. Her slot ID is 302. And her wrestler ID 2 is 620. So you can actually get these from Mike's spreadsheet. Ask in the Tribute Discord if you need the link for that, and that will help you find the IDs you need for Tribute. Okay, so this is when you change the attire in game. This is just the name for, well, it's the attire name that you usually see in that menu. So I'm just going to use the default alternate attire. If you want to use a custom one, you can get that from your SDB as well. Okay. Right, so now it's going to ask me for the character name. So this field is basically going to tell Tribute what we're going to call our character folders and what we're going to call our renders. So this can actually be whatever you want, but you have to remember it for when you're going to name your files. So if you remember, on my mod file, I'm actually called it Alexa Bliss A1. So the name I've used there is Alexa_Bliss. So I'm actually going to type that in here, because that's what I'm going to name my files. So that's how it should be. Right, so that's been generated. Return to main menu. So now, based on the name I've given, I can just, for the folder name, it's whatever name I put in underscore A1. It's A1 because it's not the default attire, it's the first attire now. And inside, it's going to be the wrestler ID underscore alt attire, just like with the new slots basically. And then the files need to be renamed to match that wrestler ID as well. And then with the render, you'll notice again it's Alexa_Bliss, and then it's got the attire one at the end of it. So that Alexa_Bliss is the name that we chose. These names are case insensitive, so it doesn't matter if it's capital or not capital. When the game generates the hashes for these, it always converts into lowercase first, so don't worry about that. It doesn't matter if it's capital or lowercase for either the renders or the character folders. That's just a little tip there. But I would tend to just keep the same naming conventions. It just keeps things simpler, I guess. Yep, so that's pretty much it. You've got your render, you've got your character folder, and you've got your fresh edits to Bake Me. You'll see it's edited the char profile table file in roster, and it's also edited the face textures, which is your render information. And you'll notice it's also edited the character mapping. It's created a new link to the character files so the game can find where those character files are. So those have all been updated, and so what you need to do then is simply open up Cake View again and rebake your Bake Me folder. Make sure it's the same name, so you're going to overwrite it. So bake that. Okay. Then you'll see that your CAC file has been updated. And that is pretty much it for adding a new attire.